So like here's my context. Here's my thesis.
Yeah,
I
like
guess you could
in
say.
what way do you mean?
So the internet, it's a scary place, right? It's a scary place, and I think we're too comfortable. We've become too comfortable too fast for our own good to operate like effectively on the internet. We've lived with it most of our lives, if not all of our lives. Definitely people younger than us have lived with the internet all of our lives, and that's kind of given us this false idea that we've figured it out. Like it's always
Oh
been
yeah.
there. Like the internet's always here, and it's just we know what to do with the internet, and we know how to use it, and we know what its purpose is and what it's for, and how to and internet etiquette and everything, because it's just always been a part of our lives. But I posit that just because we're familiar with a tool does not mean that we're good at using it. Okay, and I think there's a lot of really like one example of that could be this this idea that I think now a false idea of anonymity on the internet. So like we're still stuck in this sort of like 90s era idea that the internet is this veil of anonymity. Back when I used to be known as Magi 22, but now I'm just Bobby on the internet, right? But we still kind of as a people act like it's the 90s, and that people, but it's more akin, I think, to this magnifying glass pointed at a wormhole straight to your bedroom, and I can figure out like I heard
Your
one time.
metaphor's going long.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's a stretched metaphor, but I heard recently that the CIA, they spent a lot of times just sitting on Facebook, or maybe not CIA, but I think it was actually about
NSA
private
probably.
investigators. Was talking about private investigators.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
Oh yeah,
spent
yeah, yeah. We just basically use the
like
internet now. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I think that there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm going to slow down for a second and let you guys cut in. But there's a lot of work
I
to be done on us figuring out as a people
Go ahead.
how to use the internet.
Yeah, well, so I mean, this is actually something that I've been talking about a lot lately on my channel, non-compete. You can find it at youtube.com/non-compete. But
This
yeah, the
episode
whole
brought to you by.
yeah, might as well. But the internet is an unsafe place, first of all, and second of all, it's like very manipulated. So so think about. I think the best way for me to talk about this is to first go back to the early internet.
Okay.
When we first got on, before like corporate social media, before Facebook and Twitter and that sort of thing, when it was really much more of like a free for all, right? And then so the thing about that time was it was like kind of a gatekeeping sort of thing. So you had to learn stuff like HTML, or you had to kind of like make your own website to have a voice on the internet, or you had to learn how to use MIRC. There was kind of a more of a barrier. So back then, mostly only nerds used it. But then what happened was when the corporate sites like Facebook came along, they made it a lot easier for everyone to kind of engage and share their
Well, I'd
stories
say
with each other.
it's like your Yahoo chats, and then
Yeah,
they see the
and
social
AOL
aspects.
Instant Messenger.
Yeah.
But what's happened is that we have like agreed, we've made this like sort of, and we didn't realize we were doing it. That's my argument. We didn't see what was happening as it happened. But when Facebook and Twitter and all these like corporate platforms came along, what they offered us was, here's an easy way to get on the internet and share your story and share your ideas and share your life with people. And that's what they were offering us. And we were like, oh yeah, that's great. This is really cool and it's convenient. But we didn't realize that we were paying a price for that. And, they didn't go with the subscription price model to monetize it. They went with the ad revenue model. And then that's how this whole algorithm manipulation took root. And we didn't even realize it was happening. And I mean, I'm sure there were people who probably saw it coming or whatever, but as a society, we didn't even see it coming. And so these corporations now basically control our online lives in real and very dangerous, scary ways. And it happens in a way it happened really fast, and in a way it also happened really gradually. But it was like the water, the frog in the boiling water thing. So we didn't even notice this stuff happening.
And there's two vectors, like the actual, what you're talking about, like the actual like cultural online, and then the ISPs where they control your access and and throttle you and all that kind of stuff. Where
we also got really comfortable sharing. Yeah, we got comfortable sharing stuff, and like stuff like metadata. Like we got really comfortable just sharing our lives and everything about ourselves, and we didn't pay attention to the way that it was being harvested, the way it was being spied on by like the NSA, by the ISPs, by the
how many surveys did you guys do on your live journals?
Oh
I did
yeah,
some,
man!
like,
I thought about doing one of those
they-
recently.
it's like,
They popped up again.
oh, here's my birthday. Here's what my favorite food is. I'm just putting all this information in like an idiot. Like, and that was back then. Like, and people haven't gotten more sophisticated necessarily.
I think one
Like
of my
Facebook, the attacks have gotten more sophisticated.
Yeah. I think one of my beefs with the internet now, though, and I think privacy is a concern and maybe a conversation for another time. Yeah, but Bobby's beef, is that people are assholes on the internet. Okay, now this comes as no surprise to anyone, but and this is not a new complaint, but it's just something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is that.
Did like something bring it up?
Well, yeah. So I don't want to get too deep into it, but there's the context is that I have this other.
Give me that gossip.
Yeah, this other media network that I'm a part of called the Shadowcasters Network, and recently we did a casting call for a show that just premiered recently. We do tabletop RPG shows and everything, and one of the shows was about it was loosely based on like the X-Men. We'll just say that. And the X-Men, one of the big themes of the X-Men is inclusivity and tolerance and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we were looking for a diverse cast, and so, like I said, not getting into, because this is sort of tangential to the point, the details, but we did a casting call looking for a more diverse cast of people, and maybe we did it in kind of an awkward way, but we got a lot of blowback, and in that blowback, which we engaged in a conversation with people about it, and dealt with it the best way that we could, but in that there were so many people that were just ready to, some people who'd been listening to our stuff and doing stuff with us for a while, who were ready to just take us and just throw us under the bus and immediately call us supporters of hate speech just because we, really just go to an extreme. And I just feel like we've lost, and maybe we never had it, but we've lost.
Well, okay, I have something I really want to introduce you to right now, Bobby. Okay. This is something where like I literally want you to go, and I'm like giving you homework here. But there's a concept that's really speaks to what you're talking about.
Okay.
So there's a guy named Peter Coffin who's written a book and has a lot of videos about this. He came up with the idea, but it's like kind of taken on a life of its own. But the idea is validation gangs. So and I did a video on this as well. But basically, so the idea is that now the way that people consume, especially like content creators on YouTube and Twitch and that sort of thing, the audience interacts with you not because they want to hear what you have to say, or not because they want to engage with you and your ideas, but because they want you to validate their worldview that they already have. So
I think that you're right. There's definitely a subsegment. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as well, that's the thing. It's not the whole audience, obviously, but there's always a segment of the audience that's very vocal about this stuff. And it's usually a very toxic element. And so that it's tied to this idea of perpetual correctness. So nowadays, our culture, it's like you have to always be correct about everything. And if anyone deviates from that idea of perpetual correctness, then they get really hard pushback and blowback from the validation gangs. So the way Coffin describes it is like, when you're a content creator, you are a thought leader, is the word that he uses. And as a thought leader, your job is not to come up with new ideas or to challenge the ideas of your audience. Your job is to validate the ideas of your audience. And as soon as you stray away from validating it, you get a lot of really toxic pushback from that validation gang segment of your audience. And that has allowed a lot of audiences to completely kind of hijack content creators and also push them in really toxic directions. And I think that's why you get a lot of YouTubers who probably aren't like shitty people, but then they start saying and doing shitty things, because when they do, they get a lot of positive feedback. And when they don't, it's like the Pavlov's dog thing, So yeah, it's a really big problem with our culture right now. And I think we have broken down a lot of the idea of like what YouTube and what social media was originally supposed to be, because originally it was supposed to be this big marketplace of ideas, but now it's just become this like group of camps of validation gangs where you have to like be totally tribal about it and validate everything that your audience already believes. And if you deviate from their concept of the world, you don't just get like a debate thrown at you. You don't just get a little challenge thrown at you. You get like like basically banished until you apologize and come back and continue validating their worldview. So
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a perversion of like the idea of echo chambers, which isn't a good idea to
it's
begin with.
related.
But
Yeah, it's related to echo chambers, but it's almost kind of like worse than an echo chamber because
no, that definitely sounds like a further of the wrong that is.
I would say
like-
that an echo chamber is like very voluntary.
Well,
Whereas the
not
validation
necessarily,
gang is
but I
like-
think it's like the thing where like you go to college to meet new people, so you become less of a racist idiot. And that's like then when you go online, you find people just like you, and you only talk to them, kind of thing. That's like the badness of the echo chamber, and it sounds like that, where it's like we have the thing we like when you do that only,
Yeah,
that
right.
only.
Well,
yeah,
it's,
and do
it's
more
funny.
of this
It's
thing that you're not doing.
yeah.
another part
To
of
your
it, too.
point, Ryan, I feel like what Aaron's talking about, or is it's sort of like highlights the echo chamber problem, right? Because it's
Yeah,
like
it's a perversion. It's a grouping up on it. Yeah.
right, because you
It
spend all this time in this, because this is what happened to me, is you spend all this time oblivious to interacting with this community, oblivious to the other parts of who they are and what they think, and then and you're so used to being in these echo chambers that it blows you away when you find out that somebody has like very different views
Yeah.
and opinions than you, and I sometimes have to catch myself and remind myself, no, these people, like, this is a diverse community of people who all have different thoughts and feelings. and
Right, and there, well, and also, and I won't go too far down this rabbit hole at this point, but I think there's also the idea that we're basically commodified as creators. We,
Sure.
like this is a very capitalistic platform, and the YouTube exacerbates it too, because YouTube is all about like
More and more
forcing
so,
us
yeah.
as content creators to do certain things. And there are certain things like monetization and algorithms and all that sort of thing. They push us in a certain direction, and that direction is always feeding the validation gang what they want. Because when you
Right.
feed them, you get a lot of positive feedback also from the algorithm, and then you can get it's all connected. And then you get into the rabbit hole of like how Facebook starts feeding people more and more extremist, right-wing websites. Like you know how that happens.
Sure.
So it gets worse and worse. And then once somebody goes through that pipeline and they start to get more and more tunnel vision in their worldview, they'll go back to the beginning of the pipeline and start putting pressure on the earlier creators that kind of fed them into it. You know what I'm saying? So like it might have just been a funny internet comedy who makes some edgy jokes sometimes that got you started, but then YouTube throws up like Ben Shapiro or some right-wing
Spencer or
alt-writer or
something.
something.
Yeah.
And then they kind of breadcrumb you down along that trail. And then once you go farther down that trail, you go back to the beginning of the trail and you're like, hey, why aren't you more like Ben Shapiro? You get what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's
Right.
like one aspect of it. That's one direction it can take, but it's
Yeah.
definitely all like and reinforces itself. So
I
And
think
this gets to your original idea, Bobby, of like how like we're as people not really prepared for like how the internet works.
no, yeah,
It's a bunch of like clicks, but you can be a part of any click at any time, and then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, it's this whole thing that I
think
always wanted.
I absolutely think that that's a root of a lot of these problems. Is that we are largely speaking just we're like children when it comes to the internet, and we don't know like it's this brand new super ultra powerful game changing tool, and we are just now figuring out how it works.
well,
I
they
think
need to be teaching media literacy much more in school now. They should have been teaching it more when we were kids, but now it's like way more important. Like nobody gets taught media literacy. Nobody gets taught how they're being manipulated by advertisers, by influencers, by political agendas. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
like.
Yeah,
I happen to have a marketing, advertising, communications background, but even I am learning stuff now that I didn't realize in terms of the way that these things mess with people's brains.
right.
You
I
know,
just
so
think
you're
truly
absolutely right.
I think truly that we just need to like everybody needs to slow down and stop yelling at each other and just be a lot more charitable with each other. This is my kumbaya moment, I guess, to cap off the segment, is that everybody should just get along, but seriously. Like there's this, and I could do a whole episode about this, and that's why I've said I'm just gonna, we'll go into the next segment here in a second because I'll get too far into it. But I think there's this idea in debate called the principle of charity, And it's just the idea that whenever you're engaging someone, especially someone who doesn't agree with you, that you take the principle of charity sort of dictates that you interpret the person's position in the most charitable way possible, giving them all the benefits of the doubt, because for a lot of reasons, but because you don't know what they really mean. You're sitting on the internet, like it's really important, I think, on the internet, but and you're not sitting next to that person. You don't know what they really mean, who they are, and it's really it will benefit you, and it will, honestly, if you are debating, it'll make your position stronger. If you are approaching their position from as charitably as possible, because you're not making assumptions. You're not, Anyway, I just think everybody needs to be nicer to each other.
I guess I know we were running out of time and stuff, but
Yep.
So maybe put a pin in this. I don't know if we want to maybe continue this conversation in the next episode, but I think there's a lot to talk about. But I would just add the caveat that there are bad actors on the internet who
That's exactly what I was
will
going to say.
take advantage of the charity
Bad faith.
principle, and they will bad faith manipulate the discourse that way.
There's a strong addendum to that.
Well, maybe
I guess I would say. Oh, because we're talking about how unsafe the internet is. You also never know who the hell you're talking to.
Well, and I'll say that
is.
addendum goes for
Goes both ways.
person also. Like I've had encounters with, let's just say, people with vastly different viewpoints that argue in bad faith.
Yeah.